Okay, so here we are in week one of module 3. So let's create a new project for that. So project name will be module 3 dash week 1 and into my D drive. So this, for week 1, I'm going to introduce you just to Pyro in general, and then we're going to add some dust, a dust layer to a project from module 2. So we'll just open that scene when we come to it, right? But for now, we'll just play around with some of the shelf tools and stuff within Houdini. Okay, so in my geometry node here, in my OBJ layer, let's create a geo, and we'll call it Pyro Intro. We'll dive inside. So what I want to show you, sometimes with Pyro or while creating any simulation, you can get stuck, things aren't working, and it's hard to find what the problem is. And something I find that helps a lot is just using either the shelf tools or here now in sops itself, we've got these pre-made. If you go into Pyro, see all these Pyro configure. So that's like a full setup that you can either use, well, normally I use them, to be honest, to start my simulations, my setups, and then, adjust them as I need. Or you can use them to check, to see if there's anything missing or, wrong with your setup. So we'll start just with a billowy smoke. Okay, so that is kind of a nice, simple setup. We've got the solver in sops now, which is great. That's a new addition to Houdini. And yeah, let's take a look. So you can see there's literally just right click or tab, type Pyro, and then I don't know, say I want an explosion. Just click that. Taking a bit of time to set up, but there we got a setup for an explosion. Okay, let me move these out to the way. You can see how simple that is, and you can get these really interesting setups. Look at that, and it's just playing. Obviously, it's in lower resolution now, but I can raise that up pretty simply. I've got trails there. If I'm not sure how to do trails, we've got fire, we've got a mission going on. Okay, but we'll come to that later. I'll get rid of that for now. And just take a look at this billowy smoke, something simple to start. Okay, so again, here we can just press play. We've got smoke. Looks great. Okay, so let's see how this works. So we've got a sphere to start. This works with just a primitive. You can use any geometry here. You can swap that out for other polygonal geometry. And then we got the Pyro source node. Okay, so what this node, it doesn't do too much, to be honest. It's quite handy, but all it does is changes your geometry into points. In this case, we're scattering a volume, so points going through the volume. You can scatter points onto the surface, or you can keep the points that are coming in. In our case, since this is a primitive, it's just the one point in the middle, so that doesn't really make sense. So let's put that back to volume scatter. So obviously, you could just have if you're doing debris, for example, and you've got a particle simulation, you could start with those particles and use that to generate smoke. You could even use a flip simulation, that's a point cloud. Anything, doesn't matter really. And then it also adds these two attributes, density and temperature, to your points. So on the points, you can see we've got density set to 1, temperature set to 1. We've also got a p-scale, which is calculated, from the particle separation here. Okay, so you can see that's double the particle separation. We've got the temperature, and then the group, which is particles. Okay, so you could do all of that separately in other nodes, in another, if for some reason you can't do it here, I don't know, or you want more control, you can do that elsewhere. That's fine. So here now we're adding noise to those attributes. So we got the standard attribute noise, and we can visualize them. If we visualize the density, there you can see we got values now ranging between 0 and 1, I think. Yeah, 0 and 1 pretty much. And the same with temperature. And yeah, so here we're working on the density and the temperature at the same time. So really, to have an effect on the dynamics of your simulation, you know, on the physics, the temperature is more important, right? Density really doesn't matter. I mean, it does in the sense that it's used as a mask sometimes for some of these things, right? Maybe, yeah, you can see that disturbance. So more, you know, it's used as a to apply where there is disturbance, things like that. But you know, if you give yourself more density, it's not like the smoke's going to be more buoyant, or I don't know, you know, going to behave in a different way. Really, it's more just about how it looks, and you can control that after the fact in your render. So you know, density, I don't really think about it too much. I just set my values between 1 and 0 and leave it at that. And then temperature will have more of an effect. You know, the hotter the smoke is, the more buoyant it is, the higher it's, you know, the faster it's going to move up, basically. Okay, so that's important. You know, you can have, we could make we could try it in a minute. We can get rid of temperature here and only have a density going into our solve, and that will work. And then we can, you know, but it won't move unless we have external forces. With temperature, you have something which is integral to the dynamics, right? It will move the volume. Okay, so we've got you know, noise on there. Now we got this volume rasterize attribute. So this is generating a volume going into your pyro simulation. You have to have a volume, and this will look at attributes on points and generate a volume from them. So there you have it. Okay, so there you put your attributes in. You can put more than one, as you can see. We got a voxel size. So if you're not familiar with voxels, the way that people explain them is they are like 3-dimensional pixels. So pixels are, you know, 2D on your screen. A voxel is in 3 dimensions. So imagine a box kind of split into boxes, into small boxes, like it was made out of Lego, but square Lego. And you know, the more of those boxes you have, the more resolution. So this voxel size, you know, the smaller that number, the more resolution we can get. The slower the simulation will be. You know, it can become very slow. We can have a look here. So we got 2 volumes now. These are Houdini volumes, not VDBs now. So we got density, and we've got 62,000 voxels, and in both, right? They're overlapping. So you can see now this is tied up with something in here, but we can just delete it. If we drop that down to 0.5, it disappears. That's probably because of the particle scale. No, something's broken there. I can see just about a shadow there. Let me put that back to 1. And maybe try and bring that back. I can kind of see something. There we do. Yeah, I'm not sure why, but that's disappearing. But if I drop that down to 0.75, you can see I've got 143,000 now. So, you know, it's going up. The lower this number, the more detail. Sometimes in your viewport, if you know you feel like you've got a really high resolution, you've got lots of voxels, but it doesn't look great. We can try. Let me try going down to 0.6. Yeah, I don't know what's happening there. It's strange. What you can do is press D on your keyboard and then go into texture here, and you can see we've got this limit resolution 3D textures, so that's referring to volumes, and this HDR textures as well. If you either turn that off or raise these values, I just turn it off normally and, you know, hope that I don't go too high on it, and turn that to full HDR. And then if I, you know, just kind of refresh my viewport by going back and forward, there we go. That's fixed it now. And you can see I've got really smooth, it's almost like anti-aliased edges there, right? So I can drop that down further, probably. See, and then if I start to raise this up, we'll see that, you know, we're losing resolution there now. Going up. Oops, 1 there. Okay, so lower number, more resolution, and you can push, simulations, there will be in the millions of voxels. See, I'm kind of pushing it there. Right, so let's see there. So I've got 57 million there, and my voice probably is all broken up now because I'm pushing the limit. So I'll go back up to, let's go back to the default. Oh, that's not that. Let's try 05. No, what? I think it was like 02. Right, so you got voxel size. It's filtered, so we get, kind of tries to smooth out the edges. We've got particle scale, so, if you remember, we've got that P scale coming in, so that will scale that. If you don't have P scale, then it would just be set to 1. And then this refers to the filter as well. We've got velocity blur. If you have a velocity attribute on your points, we'll look at that in a moment, actually. And coverage attributes, this will tell us where to generate the volume, I think. I don't use that too much, to be honest. Okay, so in the pyro solver, we can just, that all goes in, and we can just press play, and it goes up. It's working. So let's see about sourcing. So we got the volumes going in. So in the sourcing, we've got source volume. So this will, here we're generating a volume called density and temperature. We can double check them. Here, it's called density, it's called temperature. If it's called that, these names have to be the same as these names. And then the target field is kind of a funny one because it has to be called density. You can't, you could generate another volume called, I don't know, smoke or whatever, and apply that to your density. You could apply temperature to your density field, but your target field has to be called density. This one has to be called temperature. If you're doing velocity, it has to be called vel, V-E-L. Divergence, it has to be called divergence, okay? You just have to know them, and that's another reason for generating these, from the shelf tools, you can find them. Right, so that's sourcing, operation, so the math of bringing those values into the simulation. You've got values on the outside and on the inside, and they're going to be different. So I'm adding, whatever I've got here on top of the values within the simulation. Here with temperature, we use this pull, which is kind of like, you can see it says this acceleration strength and deceleration strength. So that means if the temperature inside is colder than the temperature coming in, the source, then it's going to pull towards this value 20, not the value is 25, but this value of 1 at this speed. So how quickly do you go towards that new? It's like heating up and cooling down. It doesn't have to be for temperature, you can use it for anything, but it's a bit more subtle than just kind of multiplying it. If you multiply it or add it, you can get, ridiculous values. So there we got the source, and then in the basic setup, we got the voxel size again. So that basically is normally just matched up to this. We got center of your simulation space, right? We've got boundary conditions. So now they're just open, so our smoke can go in any direction, right? You can see it expanding, our simulation areas expanding, but I can close that. So a common one would be closed below 0, so that's like generating a ground plane, so that no smoke can be generated there. Okay, and we could do, if I leave that open but treat Y to be closed closed above 0, and then, well, actually if we raise that up, that will make like a ceiling and it will collide against that. Oh, not 5, let's do it to like 2 or something. It's not too high. Okay, there we go. So you see that colliding against the roof there now, the ceiling of our simulation. So you can, use that. We got collision, so how does it deal with colliders going into the second input here? And we can add some color. We've got some cool visualizers here as well. Let's try showing the temperature. So there you can see it generates this kind of 2D, I think this is voxels, or it's just polygonal geometry. And that shows you how the temperature is distributed across your simulation. What else do we have? We've got solving here. So, you know, you've got standard kind of simulation stuff, time scale. We've got viscosity if you want to do something viscous. We get rid of that temperature. What else? This kind of stuff I'd leave alone. We got temperature, which again is important. So temperature diffusion. So a hotter part will make colder parts cold, and colder parts will make warmer parts cold, if that makes sense. You know, it's just kind of just how physics works, you know. Hot things heat up cool things, and cool things cool down hot things. And then we got to rate for how quickly this will cool down. Got temperatures here, so this will affect how buoyant. So the reference temperature is like the temperature of the source coming in. So higher number here will make it more buoyant. We could try that. Should do anyway. Let's try it. Pushing up to 800. You can see that's shooting up now. And then if I drop it down to like 350, so it's just a little bit warmer than the ambient because it's going up really slow. Okay. And then you've got this buoyancy scale, which really does the same thing. Okay, we got gravity, so you could invert gravity to make your smoke go down. Okay, you can see that going down there. Looks kind of weird, but can be useful. We got flames if you want to deal with fire. We won't do that now. We'll cover that later. Shape here, so here we can add micro solvers to your simulation, shredding, turbulence. You know, we'll talk about them more in detail, I think. Again, that's going up super fast. Oh, that's why. Let's do the 500 there or something. There we go. So you can see that we're getting a bit more of an interesting form there. You know, let's go. We could go through them one by one, maybe. So we got dissipation. So that will dissipate your smoke. It will start to disappear. So if I push that up, you see it just kind of disappears like steam. Okay. We can look at disturbance. So that's kind of small scale noise. You can see that's kind of breaking up the edges there. You get some really nice fine details with disturbance. Okay. Shredding is kind of more for fire, and turbulence is good. Shredding kind of gives you those kind of licks of flames, and then turbulence is kind of these big features, right? So we got that, and then we got further control for all of them here, you know, to have more accurate control over their own. We won't talk about them again too much now. What else do we have? Export. So coming out to the bottom here, we've got density. You know, we'll have a density field. If I drop a null down here, excuse me, we'll have a density field. We'll have a velocity field, which we can't see. We'll have temperature, which we can't see. We'll have smoke, well, flame. Well, we won't because we're not generating one. We'll have a color field. So let's see, double check that we've got all them. Yeah, we see we've got density, we've got velocity split into 3. We got temperature, and we got flame. Oh, we do have a flame for some reason. But that's it. And then here we got sub steps and, you know, your cache settings. So that's pretty much it for the pyro solver. Maybe we can look at building the same kind of thing within DOPS ourselves. Just wanted to look for this as well is kind of handy in advanced. You can see we are using sparsity here. So this was kind of a big deal for Houdini 18.5. I think it was 18.5. So sparse solving means that when we're simulating, we're only you know, there are only calculations around where you have volumes in your simulation in the pyro kind of space. We do have this box, right? But there's no pressure calculations or density calculations going on here. Whereas, you know, previously without this sparse solving going on, every voxel in this box, in a box around your simulation, would be calculated, and that's really, really slow, especially when you've got, you know, long, thin simulations, or like maybe like a smoke trail, for example, or candles on a birthday cake. You've got lots of small fires, but you'd have to have a box around the whole thing. All right, so that's kind of a new thing, which is a massive time saver, and we'll look at building that in DOPS in the next video, I think.